Muhammad, peace be upon him. An attempt to understand the Prophet's biography. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Mankind was one community. Then God sent prophets as bearers of good tidings and as warners. Thus began the state of mankind, one community, steeped in ignorance, materialism, and disbelief, worshipping transient pleasure. They believed only in what fell within the realm of their senses, and their aspirations did not transcend the domain of the stomach and primal instincts. Then the scriptures and messengers came, and people divided into those who believed and those who denied, those who affirmed and those who rejected, and they split into sects and factions. This is how history narrates to us, from Adam to Noah to Abraham to Jacob to Isaac to Ishmael to Moses to Jesus and to Muhammad, the seal of the prophets. Upon him be prayers and peace. Then centuries upon centuries passed. Islam weakened therein, as is the way of religions, and time cycled back to its original state, as on the day God created the heavens and the earth. Ignorance enveloped people in a dark night once more. This time, however, it was an ignorance denser and coarser than the first. It was the ignorance of the 20th century, disguised in the garb of material science and its arrogance. A people who walked on the dust of the moon, erected skyscrapers, dove to the depths of the sea, launched into the far reaches of space, greened the deserts, and cultivated embryos in test tubes. They imagined their knowledge came from themselves, so arrogance and vanity seized them. They presumed the time had come to defeat death, attain immortality, and be done with the entire matter. In this era, people nearly reverted to the first ignorance, one community in denial and disbelief. One of them smiles derisively upon seeing someone fasting or praying, saying to himself, "This fool, for whom does he pray?" He sees faith in the unseen as naivety and gullibility, and perceives intelligence, acumen, and knowledge in the rejection of these superstitions and myths. In this age, a new genre of biographies has appeared, in which the author strives to strip Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, of everything celestial and supernatural. He imagines him in the cave of Hira, secluding himself not to commune with his Lord, but to contemplate the condition of the proletariat in Quraysh, and ponder how to liberate them from the injustices of the masters with the new law. He has thus reduced the great prophet to something like a Guevara, and Islam to a social revolution. He thought that by eliminating the story of Gabriel, the revelation of the Quran as a recitation from God, the prophet's night journey to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and his ascension to the highest heavens, he was being scientific in researching Muhammad's life, and that he was serving the faith and elevating the status of its messenger, speaking the language of the age, and addressing the disbeliever in his own tongue. The truth is, he was not addressing the disbeliever in his tongue. Rather, he was pandering to him, flattering him, and appeasing him with falsehood and forgery, lowering his prophet to the level of adventurous politicians, stripping him of infallibility and sanctity. His proof for this is what God said to Muhammad in the Quran. Say, "I am only a man like you." If only he had completed the verse. Say, "I am only a man like you, to whom revelation has been sent." This completion negates the likeness he imagined. For Muhammad is a human like us, yet not a human like us, because revelation is sent to him, while no revelation is sent to us. We are, at best, people of independent reasoning, the utmost we can aspire to is a flash of thought or an overflow of inspiration. This subtle difference is the secret of prophethood. The prophet is like us, yet he is not like us. He is in the presence of the supreme assembly and the dominion. He sees Gabriel with his own eyes and hears from him, while we are in the earthly presence, in the human abyss, veiled, having no share in these lofty realms. He is a barrier between the witnessed and the unseen, while we are on the shore of the witnessed and the tangible, barely glimpsing the other shore except in a dream, a slip, or a divine grace. This is the difference between the prophet, the saint, and the social reformer. The prophet is a guest at the divine table, receiving from his Lord the word, the legislation, and the command, and he is protected from error, not speaking from whim. The saint's share is a moment of transparency and a fleeting glimpse from a veiled door that soon closes again. He has neither infallibility nor the burden of conveying a divine message. The social reformer is from the people of independent reasoning. Like us, he has our share. He errs and he is correct. He has no infallibility, no departure from the realm of the tangible, and no soaring except through imagination, intuition, and conjecture. What a tremendous difference between these ranks! Each rank is almost in its own orbit. And what a fall it is for prophethood when we strip it of this divine
connection. What remains of it if we strip it of the unseen? It is pure denial itself, albeit cloaked in the guise of scientific terminology. Whoever disbelieves in God, his angels, his books, his messengers, and the last day has certainly gone far astray. Faith in the angels is an explicit condition for faith in God. But the materialism of the age has infiltrated everything, even our understanding of prophethood. The modern writer imagines he is smarter and more astute if he speaks of Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, as he speaks of Abraham Lincoln. This, he claims, is the scientific understanding of the matter, but it is neither scientific nor objective. Every prophet is a reformer, but not every reformer is a prophet, no matter how great his reforms. For the essence of prophethood is not reformation nor construction. The essence of prophethood is this mysterious connection with God and his unseen realm. It is this intermediary state between nature and what lies beyond nature. This state makes the prophet a listener of a unique kind, receiving inspiration from higher horizons unreachable by others. Therefore, the prophet requires a spiritual preparation entirely different from the intellectual preparation needed by the social reformer. If the social reformer's tools are study, experience, and immersion in specialized references and seminal books, the prophet's tools are completely different. He has no need for study or immersion in books, but rather for sharpening his hearing toward the universe, purifying his heart from distractions, freeing his resolve from dispersion in trivial matters, extricating himself from the pull of desires, lusts, and passions, and gathering his resolve, concentrating it on seeking one thing alone, the truth of all truths, God Almighty. For this, Abraham went out into the deserts, contemplating the moon and the stars. Jesus went out into the wilderness. Moses fasted for 40 days for an appointment with his Lord, and Muhammad secluded himself in the cave. Muhammad did not seclude himself in the cave to study the proletariat in Quraysh, as our friends claimed, a joke that reveals the extent of the superficiality and emptiness to which the minds of materialists have sunk. There was no industry in Quraysh for there to be a proletariat. There were slaves. Tribal wars would come and turn masters into slaves and slaves into masters, just like that, without any class content. The victor would enslave the vanquished until circumstances turned and situations reversed. Muhammad came, and in Qurayshi society there were slaves. Muhammad left this world, and in Quraysh there were still slaves. Muhammad himself, upon him be prayers and peace, had captives and slaves from his campaigns. So Muhammad's concern in the cave and after the cave was not the issue of masters and slaves. His sole concern was knowing the deity, then defining him, one without partner. The battle of Islam was not class change. Its battle was the transition of minds from the idea of multiple gods to the idea of monotheism, and from idolatry to abstraction. Therefore, Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, after Islam, was keen to confirm every leader in his leadership and every master in his place of honor among his people without change, unless he refused to shatter the idols. Only then would he depose him from his authority. The social functions of religion came later, when a new unified state began to form in need of new legislation, new laws, and new relationships. Then the verses specific to social justice and the distribution of wealth were revealed, as we have explained in detail elsewhere. The questioner may then ask, why can't Muhammad be a believing genius? Why don't we see him as a reformer of a unique kind? Why can't he be the politician, leader, and chief whom time seldom yields the like of? And how do we convince the empirical scientific mind of this story of prophethood, knowing that the matter of Gabriel and the revelation of the Quran from the heavens is something that only Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, directly experienced, and we have no proof for it except to accept it by submission without discussion, a matter that science does not accept? Perhaps the questioners are right to ask. We agree with you that Muhammad's goal, upon him be prayers and peace, was not class change, and that his preoccupation in the cave was not the issue of masters and slaves. We will agree with you that Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, was contemplating the truth, seeking what is beyond nature, and desiring God. But wasn't this precisely the quest of all philosophers, from Socrates to Plato to Aristotle to Kant to Hegel? Why don't you see him as one of them? Some of them, like Socrates, were illiterate. Why do you say he's a prophet? Why this insistence that he is a prophet? Do you have evidence besides your faith that can convince us intellectually of his prophethood? These are legitimate questions. They all lead us to the subject of the characteristics of prophethood in the life of Muhammad, a subject that is long nested in my mind as I peruse the biographies and ponder the lines, contemplating the life of the man who changed the world and lived and died as a simple, humble man. I will not narrate the supernatural wonders that the biographies relate about Muhammad's life, for Islam does not resort to wonders to convince people. Muhammad would respond to those who asked him to produce wonders by saying, I am only a warner, not a worker of miracles.
When Khalid ibn al-Walid embraced Islam later, he who was the knight and fierce warrior of Quraysh in the days of disbelief, he stood and said, Now it has become clear to every person of intellect that Muhammad is not a sorcerer nor a poet, and that his speech is the speech of the Lord of the world. It is therefore incumbent upon every person of understanding to follow him. Thus, intellect and logic were his means to conviction, not miracles or wonders. When Abu Sufyan became angry at Khalid's statement and said furiously, By Allat and Al-Uzza, if I knew that what you say is true, I would start by killing you, O Khalid, before Muhammad. Khalid answered with resolve, By God, it is the truth, despite my own former reluctance. Abu Sufyan rushed toward him to kill him, but Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, who was present, restrained him, saying, Gently, O Abu Sufyan, would you kill Khalid over an opinion he holds? By God, I fear that before the year turns, all the people of Mecca will have followed him. The struggle, therefore, was a struggle of opinion. The argument of Islam was reason and logic at all times, not miracles or wonders. And this is Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, the most vehement of the youth in disbelief and enmity towards Muhammad, after his father was killed by the Muslims at Badr, saying with fear and awe, By God, I feared that before the year turned, all the people of Mecca would follow Muhammad. He feared the clear argument that he saw sweeping people away, and he did not fear any miracle or supernatural act from Muhammad. If there was a miracle in the matter, it was not the splitting of a sea, the raising of the dead, the healing of a leper, or the bringing forth of a serpent from a staff. The miracle was Muhammad's very own self, which combined all perfections and reached the pinnacle in every perfection. Muhammad's own being, his behavior, character, and conduct was the miracle that walked the earth. If you reach perfection in one attribute and excel in it, that is genius. If you reach the pinnacle in oratory, you are a Demosthenes. If in poetry, a Byron. If in leadership, a Pericles. If in wisdom, a Luqman. If in arts of war, a Napoleon. If in legislation, a Solon. But to be all of these and to be tested by time in every attribute, reaching the utmost limit in each, without a school or a teacher, that is a miracle in itself. And if it happens, it cannot be explained except as prophethood, divine support, and aid from God, the bestower, alone. This is my proof for the prophethood of Muhammad. Behold, here is a man who, when he spoke, was the most eloquent of the eloquent, when he uttered, was the most articulate of the articulate. He did not speak from whim nor from memory, but from the wisdom of the all-wise, the insight of the all-seeing inspired. His collected speeches bear witness that they are comprehensive speech. If this quiet, gentle speaker went to war, we saw in him a peerless fighter and a military strategist of the first order. Here he is, organizing his army at the Battle of Uhud, placing 50 archers on a mountain pass behind the army, telling them, "Protect our backs and hold your position. Do not leave it, even if you see us entering the enemy camp and defeating them. And if you see them overpowering us and killing us, do not come to our aid. Rather, you must shoot their horses with arrows, for horses will not advance against arrows." We now know that the Muslims' setback at Uhud was due to these archers disobeying the Prophet's instructions and leaving the mountain to seize the spoils when they saw the disbelievers fleeing. Then Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was the commander of the disbelievers at that time, maneuvered and attacked the Muslim army from the rear, turning their victory into a defeat. What does this defeated leader do? We see another image of courage, foresight, and precisely calculated risk. Scarcely 24 hours pass before we see him gathering this army of wounded and weary to pursue the army of the victors returning to Mecca. He instills in the mind of Abu Sufyan, the leader of the disbelievers, the idea that Muhammad has come from Medina with new reinforcements. The soldiers call out to each other, "Muhammad has come out with his companions seeking you in a gathering the like of which has never been seen. All who had held back from him have joined him, and they are all intensely eager for revenge." The army of the wounded reaches Hamra al-Asad, where they light fires for 3 consecutive nights, making the enemy believe they are preparing for a counterattack that will annihilate their army. Abu Sufyan's resolve wavers and weakens, and he withdraws with his army hastily to Mecca, for fear of losing the victory he easily gained at Uhud. The army of the defeated returns, having regained some of its spirit and dignity that the defeat had squandered. Only a professional soldier knows the weight of this psychological gain. This bold operation, with all its deadly risks, reveals a plan of a unique order. When the situation became serious and the tension escalated, this brilliant strategist, who belonged in the rear, suddenly transformed to stand in the forefront, with arrows, spears, and swords roaring around him and death reaping necks, while he stood firm as a mountain. This was the stance of the Prophet on the day of Hunain, when the enemy rained down a volley of arrows on the Muslim army from the mountain tops in the dim light of dawn, throwing their ranks into chaos and disorder. They thought of fleeing, and they set their legs running with the wind, until Abu Sufyan said mockingly, "Their flight will not cease before they reach the sea." And Shaiba ibn Uthman ibn Abi Talha said in gloating, "Today I have attained my revenge from Muhammad."
What did Muhammad do when he saw the rout of 12,000 Muslim warriors and 20 years of struggle lost in the blink of an eye? He stood firm amidst the flood of legs running in terror around him, planted his feet firmly on the ground, while the enemy descended from the mountaintops in thousands, pursuing the Muslims and cutting them down from the right and left. The Prophet tried to push forward against the overwhelming tide, urging his white mule, while Ibn al-Harith ibn Abdul Muttalib held its bridle, fearing for the Prophet. Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib cried out with his powerful voice to those fleeing, "O assembly of Ansar, O assembly of Muhajirin, who pledged allegiance under the tree, Muhammad is alive, so rally to him." And Muhammad, steadfast amidst death, cried out, "Where to? Where to, O people? I am the Prophet. It is no lie. Stand firm." A moment tremendous, weighing as much as all of history past. A moment when destinies changed and hearts were stirred. The stance of the Prophet, the leader before death. The fugitives returned calling out from every side, At your service, O Prophet of God." Every man turned the reins of his horse to plunge into the battle. Lines clashed, and the narrators mentioned that 2 tribes of the Muslim tribes were completely annihilated in that clash, after which the defeat turned into a resounding victory. The Muslims counted the spoils that day: 22,000 camels, 40,000 sheep, 4,000 ounces of silver, and 6,000 captives transported under guard to El Jirana. To know what kind of enemy was defeated that day, it suffices to hear this dialogue that took place between a Muslim who drew his sword to strike the neck of his enemy, but the sword did not cut. The disbeliever said with composure and sarcasm, "What a poor weapon your mother has armed you with. Take this sword of mine from the back of the saddle, strike with it, raise it from the bones and lower it from the brains, for that is how I used to strike men. Then when you return to your mother, tell her that you killed Durayd ibn el-Sima, for by God, there have been days when I protected your women." So were these enemies, men, every one of them a hero. Islam was not fighting phantoms, but champions. The Prophet did not hide his admiration for the enemy leader, Malik ibn Auf, who had fled after the defeat and fortified himself in the fortresses of El Taif with the remainder of his army. The Prophet sent a messenger from Malik's own kin to convey that if he came to him as a Muslim, he would return his captured family to him, as well as his wealth, and give him an additional 100 camels. No sooner did Malik learn of this generous promise than he saddled his horse stealthily, slipped back to the Prophet, declared his Islam, and took his family, his wealth, and the 100 camels. Here is the wisdom of the expert politician who seeks to win hearts and souls, not just necks and spoils. Here is the great leader who recognizes the worth of men, even if they were his enemies. Then what was Muhammad's stance regarding the distribution of these spoils over which the Muslims were scrambling? He stood, angry, beside a fine camel, took a hair from its hump, held it between his fingers, raised it, and said, "O people, by God, I have no share in these spoils, not even this hair, except the 5th, and the 5th is returned to you. Return my cloak to me, O people. By God, if you had as many camels as the trees of Tehama, I would distribute them among you. Then you would not find me miserly, nor cowardly, nor a liar." Then he gave up his own share to those who had been his bitter enemies just days ago. He gave 100 camels to Abu Sufyan and his son Muawiyah, Al-Harith ibn Kalada, Al-Harith ibn Hisham, Suhail ibn Ammar, Huwaytib ibn Abdul el-Uzair, and the nobles, the chiefs of the clans, whom he wanted to win over their hearts after the conquest of Mecca. He gave 50 camels to others of lesser status and standing. This made the Ansar whisper among themselves, By God, Muhammad will distribute the spoils among his own people." When Muhammad heard this whispering behind his back, he gathered the Ansar and confronted them with these eloquent words. "O assembly of Ansar, what is this I hear about you? Did I not find you astray, and God guided you? Poor, and God enriched you? Enemies, and God united your hearts?" They said, "Yes, by God, indeed." "Then why do you not answer me, O assembly of Ansar? And with what shall we answer you, O messenger of God? Favor and grace belong to God and his messenger." He said, "But by God, if you wished, you could have said, and you would have been truthful. You came to us discredited, and we believed you. Deserted, and we supported you. Expelled, and we gave you refuge. Destitute, and we comforted you. Are you upset, O assembly of Ansar, over a trifle of this world, with which I have won over her people so that they may embrace Islam, while I have entrusted you to your Islam? Are you not satisfied, O assembly of Ansar, that the people take away sheep and camels, while you return with the messenger of God in your midst? By him in whose hand is Muhammad's soul, were it not for the migration, I would have been one of the Ansar. If the people were to take one path and the Ansar another, I would take the path of the Ansar. O God, have mercy on the Ansar, and the children of the Ansar, and the children of their children."
The Prophet said these poignant words with emotion, and the Ansar wept, saying, "We are satisfied with the messenger of God as our portion and share." Thus the Prophet demonstrated his asceticism regarding this abundant wealth gained from Hunain, and made it a means to win the hearts of those who, until days before, were disbelievers, so that they might see in the new religion a way to gain both this world and the hereafter. Here is the ultimate foresight and insight into the hearts of men, and skillful politics for diverse groups with differing interests and inclinations. Then the Quran was revealed, describing this battle that turned from defeat to victory, and revealing some of its secrets. God has supported you in many battles, and on the day of Hunain, when your great number impressed you, but it availed you nothing, and the earth, despite its vastness, constrained you, and you turned back, fleeing. Then God sent down his tranquility upon his messenger and upon the believers, and sent down soldiers you did not see, and punished those who disbelieved, and that is the recompense of the disbelievers. That tranquility which steadied the messenger and the believers was a support from God, and with that tranquility he sent down soldiers they did not see. Who are these soldiers? That is the unseen. A battle of such magnitude, with its rapid, sudden transformations, cannot be comprehended by the mind without imagining an unknown support from the unseen working behind the veil. Similarly, the Battle of Badr, when 300 Muslims met with only 3 horses among them for warfare, against 1,000 from Quraysh, in iron and armor, led by more than 100 horsemen on their steeds, Muhammad prayed and supplicated, his arms outstretched to his Lord. "O God, this is Quraysh, come with its arrogance, trying to deny your messenger. O God, grant me the victory you promised me. O God, if this small band perishes today, you will not be worshipped." He continued to call upon his Lord until his cloak fell from his shoulders. What mind can imagine this small band with its primitive weapons defeating this multitude in iron and armor without support from the unseen? The Quran narrates, revealing some secrets of this battle. God had already supported you at Badr, while you were weak. Then fear God, perhaps you will be grateful. When you said to the believers, "Is it not sufficient for you that your Lord should reinforce you with 3,000 angels sent down? Yes, if you remain patient and conscious of God, and the enemy comes upon you in rage, your Lord will reinforce you with 5,000 angels having marks." God only made it good news for you, and to reassure your hearts therewith, and victory is not except from God, the exalted in might, the wise. And in another place, so you did not kill them, but it was God who killed them, and you did not throw when you threw, but it was God who threw. These are some secrets of the unseen and some secrets of divine support. When the resolve of hearts is elevated and material forces are not evenly matched, then comes the hidden support, realizing God's eternal justice from where the eye does not see and the ear does not hear. This is Muhammad the Prophet, in whom perfections were combined, reaching the pinnacle in each. He was the worshipper, the supplicant, melting in reverence and annihilated in love. He was the fierce fighter who faced legions of death with steadfast foot, while thousands of heroes and knights fled before him like rats. He was the brilliant strategist who drew plans surpassing the professionals. He was the shrewd politician who moved masses and held the reins of emotions with the skill of a master conductor. He was the speaker who uttered comprehensive speech. He was the father and the sincere friend and husband. He was the possessor of the call who established a system and founded a state from nothing, from scattered, disparate tribes who knew only highway robbery, vengeance, and boasting of lineage and descent. He was the intermediary of secrets, the one who beheld the unseen kingdom, listening to God and his angels as we listen to one another, reaching the peak in both the sciences of the apparent and the sciences of the hidden simultaneously. He was the generous, the forbearing, the affectionate, the compassionate, the patient, the cheerful, the smiling, the gentle in companionship. The immense burdens did not prevent him from being kind to a child or an infant. He would carry them on his shoulder while kneeling, prostrating, or standing, nor from bantering with a wife with an unending wellspring of tenderness, as if he drew from an ocean. This self is the miracle. The gathering of these perfections in one being is a miracle, not mere genius. Genius is to excel in one attribute only, but for our being to be a gathering of perfections, this is prophethood. This is something that cannot be except with divine support, infallibility, success, empowerment, and diffusion from Him with whom are the treasures of everything.